All right, what's up, everybody? We got quite the crew today. We got 6 of us already on screen. We're going to talk Bitcoin. One of the big kind of things going on this week has been this massive discussion and debate on X about MSTY, which is a yield product on MSTR. It's complex, it's interesting, and I understand why people are searching for yield. They want to replace their income, how like this is a product that seems to kind of do that for them. But I think there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot more that I think a lot of these people don't realize. There's the idea just of a yield product on something that is Bitcoin related, being maybe a little bit controversial to begin with, just off of that concept alone. So that's going to be our first topic. John, I know you made a great video. I think maybe you just released it today or yesterday. I watched it. I made a video on MSTY like 4 months ago. It's been around, and I think we should just get into maybe what it is. Maybe John, if I can kick it to you to describe it a little bit, and then I will maybe fill in some gaps as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm by no means an expert for sure. So I just like was doing my own deep dive to try to understand it, and then I was like, I think I'm learning a lot about this, and I have a lot of questions still. So it's like I'm just going to publish it as like an article, and then I just basically recorded my article as a YouTube video, which I think I learned a good amount. Basically, so you have YieldMax. They do a lot of these funds. They're income generating funds built on top of like a security, and so MSTY is built on top of MSTR. But they have a lot of these. They have one for Tesla, they have one for Nvidia, and they basically sell covered calls and then collect options premiums and then give them to the investors as dividend distributions. That's pretty much fundamentally, I think, the basics. I'm sure it's a little more complicated than that. Maybe it's not. But so most people, so like, this is not a new thing just in general, like as a product. But I think my sort of deep dive on it, one of the things I came away was the Tesla one, the Nvidia one, like they perform pretty badly, and there's a lot of reasons why that's true. So the yield numbers on the surface look like eye popping. It's like there's a Coinbase one that YieldMax has that has like 200% yield or like yield, and you're like, holy crap, why isn't all my money in this? It's like, oh, it turns out the NAV, the net asset value of the fund, is eroding like crazy. And most of the dividends, they're handing you back return of capital, which is your own money back as a dividend, because they're not actually making money with the options premiums the way that you would hope they would when they're running the fund. So there's a lot of like hidden risks underneath the surface. So I just see all these people talking about it on X, like, oh, this is just a guaranteed cash cow, money making machine. And to me, the biggest question was, okay, is the one built on MSTR different from the ones built on other securities and other equities, because MSTR has that volatility. It's built for volatility, which is good for selling covered calls or like selling options. So can MSTR survive better than some of these other ones, which just look like total traps, even though the numbers on the surface look really good? So that's, I'll stop there because I try not to be too convoluted about it, but I don't know how I did setting it up there. But back
No,
to
that
you,
was
Forrest,
great.
if you have
That
thoughts.
was great. Yeah, I'm just going to fill in a little gap here with showing you guys this as well. This is actually what MSTY holds. And the vast majority of what they hold is US Treasury bonds and cash equivalents. Then they have a synthetic long call, and they sell covered calls against that. Now, the reason for that, they can't even deploy all the capital into a cash generating strategy or serious cash generating strategy. I mean, they're earning 3% or 4% yield on these because the ETF laws don't allow concentration in one type of equity, which would be MSTR or MSTR options. But bonds are exempt from that. So they basically forces them to reserve a whole bunch of the capital that people are investing into something that isn't really yielding them anything. And the other thing here too, like, I mean, we're going to get a lot of hate. There's a lot of people that love MSTY. It's a huge community right now. But the other thing is it's just not very tax efficient if you don't really understand. And again, with the return on cap or return of capital is the other thing, which is they're just returning your own investment back to you, and that keeps the share price low. That makes the distribution look good. It's kind of a little bit of deception going on in that way. And what you actually own by investing in this strategy is a bunch of treasury bonds, a couple long dated leaps on MSTR, and some short positions with appreciating from the theta decay of those short positions. So in my opinion, you could structure a fund way better, and it would underperform the distribution, but only because it wouldn't return your own capital back to you, which doesn't make any sense. But I'd love to hear just quickly some other thoughts here from some other people here on the call.
Yo, sorry about the echo in advance. Did you guys watch Bitcoin University's video this morning about the MSTY thing? I don't know if anybody's seen it.
Yep. I saw the one 2 days ago.
I have. Yeah.
Like I feel like he did a pretty good job convincing me to just stick to Bitcoin, to be honest. And just, I don't know, that's just me, but I don't know. What do you guys, I mean, anybody else like felt like, I should just stick to the basics? I mean, I love some extra income, not gonna lie, but I don't know.
I mean, I didn't even need convincing. I'm like super hyper paranoid about this stuff, but I'm Bitcoin only all the way. I've been like that for years, and it really has treated me well. And the one thing is, though, it's like these products, they're all designed by other people. They have counterparty risk. They are designed to get other people rich. Bitcoin is the only one that's designed to get you rich.
Now, don't get me wrong. I do have a lot of shares of MSTR. I mean, my Roth IRA is basically majority of it is MSTR because I like what Sailor's doing, but the MSTY portion of it is kind of like, I feel like it's kind of going over my head a little bit,
Yeah. So you're not the only MSTR person in here. I think probably at least half of this group loves MSTR. I don't. I think MSTR will go up because they have a lot of Bitcoin. I just think it won't go up as much as Bitcoin itself. I could be wrong. That's fine. I'm willing to, eat my words if that happens. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is what gives you sovereignty over your money. MSTR, even if it goes up higher than Bitcoin, it does not reduce the counterparty risk, and it does not give you sovereignty over your wealth. And those are two of the big things that are attractive to me as a Bitcoiner. So you got to figure out what's right for you. If you are in this position where you only want to buy the thing that is going to make the absolute most wealth, chances are over the next 10 years, or the next 5 years, or any particular time frame, there might be one or two options that are going to outperform Bitcoin. That's okay. I don't know what those options are. I think it's very, very difficult to find them. Maybe it will be a MSTR. Who knows? But, again, Bitcoin is a winning lottery ticket. We know it. We understand it. If you have a winning lottery ticket, don't trade it for something that someone's claiming is going to be a slightly better winning lottery ticket, at least in my mind. Other people go ahead and disagree.
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up this comment here and touch on that point to Dan. This person, Bobby C, says, I think all these new Bitcoin products are a way for strategy to keep people from buying BTC so they can. MSTY isn't something that Strategy's issued. YieldMax has issued it, and they're just trying to play off the volatility of the underlying, which is Strategy call options. But what I have seen lately is that a lot of people are selling their Bitcoin to buy MSTY. I've seen that on X. I've seen people sell their iBit or something like that. Maybe it's trapped capital. They have to invest in an ETF or a proxy or derivative. But I'm seeing people move into MSTY instead of holding Bitcoin. But I also think that there's a huge section of passive income investors that already buy a lot of these YieldMax products to juice up their returns. Like they might have safer kind of dividend plays or something like that. And they're still exposing themselves to MSTY, which is participating in the options market of Strategy, which is allowing Strategy to buy more Bitcoin. So it's a net positive if it's attracting buyers that are not selling their Bitcoin, which I think there is a subsection of MSTY investors that do fall under that.
I don't really have any disagreements, Dan, with anything you said. And I think the only difficult shelling point to come to is as a Bitcoiner, if you reach a point in your life, your Bitcoin appreciates enough or whatever, maybe you finally want to make a lifestyle change where you want to quit your job or whatever. I'm not saying, like right this second, but if you reach that point, the problem becomes the trade-off is there a way to have income that's coming in so I don't have to sell my Bitcoin? Or do I make the hard decision to sell some of my Bitcoin each month to fund my lifestyle or a big purchase or whatever? So I think that's the only part where your sort of principles really like the rubber meets the road. And you're like, okay, which one of these two things is the lesser of two evils?
Well, I mean, I think the lesser of two evils, if you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Sell some of your Bitcoin. The whole point of having a savings is to use that savings. If you need to transfer it to dollars first in order to buy some groceries, fine. That's literally the point of having a savings. Even if you go to the YieldMax website and you look at MSTY, it's designed to underperform MSTR. It's designed to not do as good. And likewise, it's probably going to completely underperform Bitcoin as well. But yeah, I think the entire frame of mind of you need income, it is wrong. You need to have wealth, and you can sell some of that wealth for goods and services to let you live the lifestyle that you want to live. So I think just the framing of income, that's like having a dividend investor. I don't know how you guys feel about dividend investing, but the whole point is getting your net worth to as high as possible, not to have a slowly rising fixed income. If you want to be a billionaire, nobody cares if you have a 25-cent dividend or whatever it is.
Well, dividends are just that cash coming out of that company. You're not gaining anything from that dividend. That company that you've invested in is losing that amount. So it's net nothing. And if that company has any growth prospects, it doesn't make any sense to give out that dividend. Plus, there's tax implications on that. So even this person here, Sopopa, says that they have 100% drip on this. This doesn't make any sense to me unless it's completely tax advantaged somehow. And then still, you probably should just own the underlying if you believe in the underlying. It makes no sense. Like, this is an income generating product. If you're not using it for income, I don't really understand the purpose of it. But yeah, I would also say it is possible to earn income from equities if you understand how to sell covered calls. That's actually what Matt Crowder's video today is about covered call selling. And he says basically it's capping the upside and you're selling covered calls on Bitcoin, which we all believe is going way higher. So it makes no sense. However, I've been doing it for years now and I've been picking up pennies in front of the steamroller, being very strategic, selling it very far out of the money. It's worked for me. I don't have an income fund that I hold others' assets under management and do that, but I do it for myself and I earn a little bit of extra income, which allows me to buy more Bitcoin. Maybe it'll screw me, but I've done well so far.
Very nice. Very nice.
I don't want it to screw you, Forrest. I want it to continue to work for you, but there's definitely risk there. So
yeah,
I'm just crossing my fingers that it continues to work. But I guarantee you that if 100 people in this call really go for it, it's not going to go well for most of them. Maybe some of them.
Yeah, agreed. Who made bank off Dogecoin? I don't think anyone here.
Kind of back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Again,
Yeah, actually,
I was a shitcoiner until about, again, like the end of 2022. That's when I became a Bitcoiner and I transferred all my coins. But again, when Elon went on SNL, what up?
Is the Voyager scandal the thing that made you a full-on Bitcoiner?
The Voyager scandal made me like stop doing any investing. I just got pissed off and I felt really sad and I felt really bad because I told people to use Voyager because I just thought it was somewhere you could buy Bitcoin. It's like a bank, but I was an idiot. I did not know what was going on. I didn't know what self-custody was. But I don't know what it was. But one day I was driving home with my brother and we just thought about the Bitcoin price. And then I just went down a YouTube rabbit hole. It was completely random. I had no intention of doing that, but it just happened. So I'm very thankful.
Before we move on from Misty, which we should do, and if people have other additional questions on things that we haven't touched, we can come back to it halfway through the show and we'll answer a lot of these questions. But just wanted to hear from Josh. We haven't heard from you yet about Misty. Do you have any input or any thoughts? I know you're learning options a little bit, asking me some stuff about covered calls. So do you have anything else to talk about with Misty?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little bit on the fence about it. Like I see the strategy and it makes sense, right? It's a volatile stock. So there's a lot of premiums to collect. Like someone's got to collect those premiums on the call options of like the most volatile stock in the Nasdaq. So I see that aspect of it, but also my conviction tells me that Bitcoin's going way higher and MSTR is going way higher. So knowing that, I know selling covered calls at some point you're going to get burned on that, and it's more of a when, not an if. And if my conviction is that MSTR is going to go way higher, then I think I'd rather just hold my MSTR shares long term and collect income off the top, especially because I plan on holding it for a few years. So you're also getting the benefit of the tax implications of long-term capital gains tax on that as well. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. All right, let's move on to the next story here. We can always come back. I mean, MSTY is an interesting one, so we can always come back if we feel like it. But this happened just this week, 4 days ago. This Scottish boarding school now accepts fees in Bitcoin. I mean, I thought this was pretty cool. They charge up to £38,000. They don't accept any other cryptocurrencies, only just Bitcoin. Or that's this line right here. And they do say that these will initially be converted back to UK pounds. But I mean, I think this is maybe just a stepping stone in. Maybe there's some pretty based Bitcoiners here running this school. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this news story.
Inevitable slow development of Bitcoin from store of value to medium of exchange. Go ahead, Gen Z.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I was not aware of this till you brought it to my attention. So it's a very cool story. I think it's interesting that they're immediately converting all the Bitcoin into the other currency, but it's a way of dipping their toe in. It's a way of showing a little bit of openness, and I understand that, like, especially for institutions, it's a little bit scarier to take that first step and to be that innovator. But in the future, and by future I mean really like 20 years from now, maybe even less, it'll be very strange for any company, any country, any individual to not accept Bitcoin. A lot of things are happening super fast, and this is a great example of that. 2 months from now, we might hear about another university who's accepting Bitcoin, and only half of the proceeds are converted back into fiat or whatever, and then they use that to build part of their treasury. Right? I'm not too sure how it'll work, but I support this movement, and the fact that it's Bitcoin only seems that they kind of understand what they're doing. So that's always good.
Yeah, the Bitcoin only is the really important part there. I don't know who's in charge of that school, but good for them for figuring it out. And like John said, it's inevitable. Everyone's going to do it. So it's not about them doing it now. It's about who's doing it next, or how many schools are going to be doing it in 10 years. Probably most or all.
Yeah. And another thing I'll add in really quick, sorry, is honestly, this is like a university, right? Any university student, now to be fair, I went to university. That does not mean that I'm smart. In fact, it literally made me dumber. But you would assume that, you're coming to a university. If you come in there trying to pay your tuition fees with XRP or with ETH, bruh, you're getting kicked out of the school off the rip. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be trusted. I'm just be honest. Like, you don't know what's going on, bruh.
I actually don't think it is a university. It's a boarding school. So I think that's really common over there.
Okay. My bad.
Pupils from 3 until 18. So yeah, that's like literally Hogwarts type stuff.
Most based boarding school ever, for sure.
That is
first
off, based boarding school. It's gonna be a lot of future leaders.
Yeah, it's pretty good advertising, I guess, because they're gonna get a lot of publicity for it, which is smart. That might be why they're doing it. But it is interesting that it's such a novel thing, like that one school in Scotland or whatever will do that, and that's we can hear about it in the US and it's news. It's interesting, and that tells you how early we are, right? Because the thing that I'm sort of most interested in, I think Jack Dorsey was the one who kind of sparked this, put some gas on the flames of this discussion of the whole, if Bitcoin doesn't reach more wide-scale adoption as a medium of exchange, does that mean it will fail as a store of value? I'm interested in that debate. I think where I sort of stand is, if you sort of study history and the history of money, you kind of see like commodity monies go through this phase of collectible, then store value, and then has to go through a store value phase because just makes sense from first principles. Why would I want to trade and interact and use something as a medium of exchange if I don't view it as a store of value to begin with? Why would I work or trade something else of value for that thing? So it goes naturally through the store value phase into the medium of exchange phase. So I don't know how long that's going to take for like wide scale adoption, but it's interesting that you know, it's like a super new and novel thing now to see like one school doing that, but it just seems like the natural trajectory that things will go through, and who knows how long it'll take to sort of generally move from one stage to the next, but we're headed that way no matter what.
Yeah, that really brings up like the biggest question, because I think it's pretty obvious, at least to all of us, Bitcoin is inevitable. It's not an if, it's a when. But the when is such a big question mark. Somebody was asking me this week, when is Bitcoin gonna, be used to buy your average cup of coffee? Could be 10 years, could be 50 years. I have no idea, but I feel very confident it's gonna happen.
If you buy it now, it's going to be an expensive cup of coffee in the future, which is what everybody fears. But I mean, maybe we should talk about that Jack Dorsey thing. I mean, he was on that.
One sec. I also want to
Sure.
say, like, what do you guys think about like paying a college with Bitcoin when aren't some of you guys a little bit like too attached to your Bitcoin like I am? Like, I feel like I do like that, we are using Bitcoin as a, medium of exchange, but like, I feel like I would be like, I don't know if I want to give, all that Bitcoin away to a college right now at these prices. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, yeah, that's basically Gresham's law, right? The bad money kicks out the good.
Yeah.
If you have the option to pay with the dollars, I'm going to pay with dollars every single time because I want to get rid of those dollars and I want to keep the Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin really starts becoming a natural medium of exchange and the default medium of exchange is when people start realizing that they don't want the dollars. Depending on the business I was in, I wouldn't accept, I don't even know what like really shitty currency exists out in the world, but there are a lot of currencies I would not accept. Like if I was doing international business, I would only accept Bitcoin. So at some point, people are going to realize that they don't want their fiat currencies. They're not going to accept them for the goods and services that they're providing, and they're only going to accept Bitcoin. And that's when things really start to change.
Yeah, kind of another perspective on that. Like, I think us as Bitcoiners right now, we recognize we're so early. So a lot of us are going to choose buying Bitcoin over, buying some other goods or like luxury goods. But basically by doing anything, you're technically selling Bitcoin, right? Like me paying for my groceries, like I'm choosing not to buy Bitcoin. I'm selling potential Bitcoin for groceries. Like just because you're not directly selling off your Bitcoin stack doesn't mean you're not selling.
Yeah, and what Josh is mentioning there is called opportunity cost. So even though you're not necessarily utilizing Bitcoin to buy something, right? You're missing out the opportunity of buying more because you had to buy things. So like you said, Gresham's law, it makes sense to spend the weak money, but in the long run, Bitcoin has to become a medium of exchange as well as a unit of account in order to truly succeed. And there's been great episodes on this by Jeff Booth. He probably does it the best, and he's a legend. And he also says the same sentiment, and he explains it in great depth about how Bitcoin cannot necessarily succeed as simply a store of value, the same way that gold was not a successor to the dollar. The reason why gold lost to the dollar is because it was not a medium of exchange, right? Bitcoin must fulfill all three of the levels. And that's where we have people making stuff like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, because one, they are very impatient, and two, they feel like they have to try to push that medium of exchange factor immediately. But it has to happen a lot more organically than people think. You can't just force it. And because of the way Bitcoin works, and because of the way we can make Bitcoin in layers like the Lightning Network and other layers that we don't even know about yet because they don't exist, we can't really force the medium of exchange as quickly as we like. It already is a medium of exchange, but scaling it out to everyone on Earth is still something that we're working on. The Lightning Network's doing a good job, but there will be more stuff even after that.
Yeah, and I think Bitcoin needs to go through its cycle. Like people, exactly what Gen Z was saying there, where it has to build as a store of value first, and there needs to be, and there has been a leveling off in the volatility of Bitcoin and the price appreciation of Bitcoin, because people are reluctant when you can spend bad money, you will. So people are reluctant to spend their good money, but there'll be a time where it's not just an oddity that one of these boarding schools is accepting Bitcoin. It's the fact that all of these boarding schools are demanding Bitcoin. You have no other choice but to pay in Bitcoin. And then good money pushes out bad. It's the opposite law, but it comes into place later on. And then I mean, if you want something, you're gonna spend your stored energy, which is Bitcoin, to acquire that thing. So it's just going to take time. It moves very slowly. This asset is 16 years old. Gold is thousands of years old. Has been used for as a monetary store of value, medium of exchange, and now it's not. It's been papered over, and yeah, it's going to take a long time before all of that actually happens.
So question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what you guys thought about the idea of Bitcoin being used as a medium of exchange more for international trade in the near future. I know a lot of people right now, especially with the tariffs and whatever, they're talking about the dollar kind of going away as a global reserve currency for international trade. And I was wondering what you guys thought about Bitcoin not completely taking over its role, but at least partially taking over that role.
Yeah, well, I think like in the article, I think it kind of ties into this. I just thought it was funny that they said they're converting the Bitcoin to UK pounds to mitigate currency risk, which is just funny because that's what we're all doing with Bitcoin. We're mitigating the risk of relying on a currency that's created and enforced by a government.
Well said. Yeah, I like that. I wanted to talk about that question there, Dan. Just last week, I didn't write this down, so I don't have the news article to pull up, but there was actually just a large China and Russia settled an energy trade partially in Bitcoin. So not fully, but partially. And this is a public trade, global, as you said. And so that's actually happening. And that's because it is neutral money that people can use. And if both parties agree it has value, I mean, it's very difficult to, in my opinion, if you controlled a money printer and you were trying to use that money for somebody else's value that for energy, for oil or something that other nation has created, it's very hard for me to convince them that I'm not just going to dilute the money that I'm going to give them just all to hell, right? How do they trust me, right? What is my trustworthiness of that? So if they can understand Bitcoin, they can trust it because it doesn't require trust, really. It's a trustless money. So I think it's inevitable. I think more and more of that's going to happen. But that was actually a pretty big news story that kind of went under the radar, is they partially settled some trade with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I didn't even see that, but that makes total sense. I know, especially with the risk to the petrodollar, everyone is trying to experiment with other ways to sell their oil outside of US dollars. And it seems like a lot of people think that China is going to replace the United States dollar as a global reserve currency. But if the dollar kind of goes away because of its issues and there's a natural vacuum, some of it will probably get replaced by the Chinese currency. But at the same time, a lot of people are going to recognize that they don't want China to have that power too, and they're going to try and use other options. So that's a really interesting story that I didn't even know about, Forrest. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
100%. I was basically going to say something similar, which is like, as trust breaks down, or as parties who don't want to trust each other need something to transact in, they're going to need a neutral, permissionless, trustless digital money to settle on. I mean, they can still settle with physical gold. That's like the number one trustless, permissionless thing countries can still settle in. Let me ship you, 1,000 tons of gold. It costs a ton of money and it's crazy expensive and takes forever. So you have a digital version of that you can do that over, immediately. that it's not a liability of another country that can debase it or whatever. I mean, I think it's Crater as well, or other people talk a lot about, it was actually a really big deal when the US sanctioned Russia by basically saying like, hey, that money that you have in treasuries is ours now. And so it sent a message. It was like, that's a very short-sighted decision that we made by basically sending the message to the world. You don't own the money that you think you own that's in our currency. Like, we're just going to take it from you whenever we want. So that may have felt good in the moment, or been like, oh, we're, sticking it to the bad guy. But we just sent a message to the world, like, don't hold your value in this thing that we print and have control over, because we'll just take it from you whenever we want. So as trust breaks down in that way between parties who don't want to trust each other, oh, look, here's this thing where we don't have to trust either side, and we can just settle in this neutral, digital, permissionless, trustless, global asset.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a quick little pause here, guys. I want to Bitcoin Well just gave me a bunch of points, so I'm going to throw some points in the wishing well for some viewers here. If anybody has a Lightning wallet, they can scan the QR code that's about to pop up, and you could win some sats. So we're just going to do that quickly. Let's do
Everybody
a couple.
lock in,
Yeah,
get your cameras.
Exactly. 210 free sats for the first person that scans that with their Lightning wallet.
210 free sats. If you get it, comment in the chat. You got 210 free sats. That's basically $210 you just got for free, by the way. Give it time.
Future dollars, exactly. Well, yeah. All right, let's do another one. Hopefully somebody got that in time.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to, let's see, the last story here that I got.
Oh my God. $500 for free. Who got that? Come on now. Come on now. We're just giving out racks on the show. They're going to look back and they're going to be like, Dad, you were just giving out $500 for free? For free? I'm just joking. They won't say $500.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, true.
This is a live stream that pays you. I love this.
All right, guys. So this last one here, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. There's been a lot of state laws that have happened with Bitcoin, or at least bills that have been put in. They're kind of trying to get through different, Congress, Senate, whatever, all these different things they have to go through to actually become law. I'm going to share this screen with you guys so you can see it's visually very drastic. I mean, all of these states here have some sort of Bitcoin law. What's interesting about this is there has actually been a couple that have been passed, but they've had the SBR taken out of them. So a lot of these are like, the states have some sort of savings, either it's from mineral rights or excess tax receipts or whatever, but they have some money, and that's like sort of an investment. They call them rainy day funds, actually. And so a lot of these bills are aimed at converting some of the rainy day fund, maybe 5-10%, into Bitcoin to hold for long periods of time. Now, what's interesting is a couple of these bills have actually gone through, except that part of actually buying and holding Bitcoin has been removed. And the laws of being able to run your own node, have your own wallet, sort of like the understanding of just being able to have your own Bitcoin, those kind of fundamental laws have been in place and are now law within that state, even though people have already been doing that, of course. Just love to get your guys' thoughts. Do you think any of these are going to happen? I have very low personally, I think that's very low likelihood that any of these states are going to actually buy any Bitcoin. We'll see, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'd like to speak first on this one, if that's all right. Because it makes me upset that all these guys, they're doing this almost like it's theater. You know, it's like, hey, guys, we're going to do a Bitcoin reserve because the federal government said they're going to do it. So we're going to do it just to back out at the last minute. And I understand it's very hard to push legislation like this. It's very hard to get this through. There's nothing but old heads that are in these, senates and these republics and these councils that are doing a lot of these votes. And it really sucks to see, because I think that they're just wasting time. You know, they're all going to fall in line eventually, especially once the federal government makes the move. So they're going to start buying first, and then all the states are going to copy. You're just buying at a higher price, which means you actually did a disservice to all the people who live in your state. That's the first thing. And then secondly, states are supposed to be the incubators of innovation. All right. And for you to only act after the federal government has acted kind of defeats the purpose of a state being a smaller form of government that's able to move quicker than a federal government, which is much bigger and much harder to reach consensus in. So I just find that very upsetting. The third thing is, oh, you know, we're going to do this thing where we give you the right to do the thing that you're already doing. Really? You're going to give me the right to self-custody Bitcoin, the right to run a node, the right to use the internet, all right, the right to breathe, the right to live. Thank you so much. My government overlords giving me the right to exist. I'm so happy. So this is really upsetting. I don't know. I get it at the same time, but like, come on, guys got to do better, and they will regret these walkbacks in the future. I truly do believe.
Yeah, they're going to regret it. I mean, when, you know, as the Bitcoin price goes up, everyone's going to start looking back and say, oh, we should have bought when it was $80,000. We should have bought when it was $100,000. We should have bought when it was $800,000. You know, at the end of the day, I think you kind of explained it perfectly. Who cares what the government does? I'm not really expecting much out of them. I'm just expecting, I don't really care what anyone does except for me when it comes to Bitcoin. I want to buy all the Bitcoin I can. If they want to stand on the sidelines, they're lost.
And the sad thing is, I think, so I live in Maine, and I feel like my state is probably going to be the last one to jump in because it's just a bunch of old heads over here. So, oh well, it is what it is.
My thought on it is sort of like, number one, I'm kind of on the fence still of whether I think it's a good thing or not to have governments or states or federal government or the state or city governments or whatever buying Bitcoin. I'm kind of like on the fence of whether that's a good thing in and of itself or not. I think it's inevitable, so I'm not going to like get all my panties in a bunch fighting it if I think it's a bad thing, because Bitcoin is for enemies and they're going to do that whether or not I want them to. But I do think to some degree, it's better if the plebs and the normal people get stacked more first before the government starts stacking it. So to some degree, I think it's a good thing. Despite the fact that I disagree with them removing the let's buy Bitcoin part of the bill, I think it's potentially a good thing for us if they do remove that part. And then they do codify into law the parts that protect our rights. I agree with you, Gen Z, about like basically like that's kind of backwards and stupid that we need them to codify into law rights we should innately already have, right? Or like give us permission to do the things that we should just be freely able to do. But I do think like the government, essentially the government abhors a vacuum. They're going to make a regulation or a law one way or the other. So we kind of need these things where they start codifying and putting laws and bills and regulations in place that are in Bitcoiners' favor. Because otherwise we risk running into a place where I think we will head closer and closer to this, especially as Bitcoin price appreciates. There will be more and more FUD, more and more attacking, more and more saying you didn't earn that wealth. All these crypto bros just got rich because Bitcoin mooned. Now we hate you. Now we need to take that wealth from you. Now we need to tax you. Oh, now you shouldn't have the rights. So the more we kind of can front run that happening with codifying and laws and regulations that protect our rights to run a node or self-custody or whatever it is, the better off we are, because we don't know what the next administration will look like or whatever. And especially when we start to see the jealousy come in of, hey, all these crypto bros just got super rich because Bitcoin went to $1 million. And now there's a lot of pissed off people who are mad they missed out and think we didn't earn it. So they want to take some, right? Or start infringing on our rights.
Yeah.
I tried to tell you, bro. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, for real. I understand. It's better to have laws that are for you than against you. It is true. But I just think it's all theater. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys clearly don't understand Bitcoin too well. But I think that'll start changing. You know, politicians won't be able to win elections unless they understand Bitcoin. We've already kind of seen that happen, and it's going to keep happening.
Can you highlight Bobby C's comment? I think that's a great one. I'm going to start sending BTC as a gift to friends and family for birthdays and such. Yeah, Bobby C, I think that's absolutely fantastic. I started doing that like 6 years ago. And all the people that I've sent it to who are probably would likely be anti-Bitcoin now if I didn't send it to them, now they're all pro-Bitcoin. So they don't buy any extra, but they're for it because they have some. And all the Bitcoin that I gave them has appreciated a lot since then. So great idea.
It's very nice. Only thing I'd say about that is be very careful. Don't send them a whole lot to start, you know, make sure they kind of understand a little bit what's going on, and hopefully they don't lose it.
Yeah. if it does become worth a lot, then maybe they'll care a little bit more about maintaining it and stuff like that. So that might lead them down that rabbit hole of Bitcoin self-custody as well, which could be good.
Yeah,
right?
and
But
depending on how you do it, you might need to save their keys.
Yeah, I
If
was gonna
you
say,
don't think that
keep a
they're the
copy of the
type
seed
to
phrase.
yeah,
get
you
back.
can actually create child wallets off of wallet as well. So you can create additional seed phrases that you can unlock with your own seed phrase. So you could do something like that, but they can't get your wallet through their seed phrase. So that could be a way of yeah, there's a couple different things you can do that strategically make sense to send people Bitcoin while you still have the what is it called? The Uncle Jim? Is that the term? Where you're the one looking after the Bitcoin for your family? I think it's called Uncle Jim. But yeah.
I didn't know that
Is that a
term, but
term?
I like it.
Is that a thing? Is this guy just
Yeah.
making stuff up? Chat. Is Forrest Huddle just making stuff up? I think he is.
I could be.
Yeah. And it looks like Health Wealth Dad did that too. He gave some to his sister last week. So
Yeah.
man, the more people we have like that, the faster Bitcoin's gonna spread. So I am all for donating Bitcoin to friends and family because those are the people we want to be rich with at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
good job to everyone in the chat.
I do have one final note on the state thing. I do think it's just crazy looking at that map and thinking about how there's people that are trying to push through these laws about Bitcoin where that's all brand new. That's just happened like end of 2024, 2025. That's all brand new. Like none of that was on the political radar whatsoever before that. So this is, I mean, that's a sea change. Like whether any of this goes through, whether any of it actually happens, I mean, it could. I mean, you look at like the cannabis laws. Cannabis laws, I kind of look at that a little bit similarly, where the states front ran that, and it became legal in a lot of cities and states, and it still hasn't become federally legal in the U.S., but it's kind of starting there first. So maybe it'll happen in one of these states, but I don't know. There's I think a lot more people hyping that up than the reality of how likely it is any of that happens.
I'll make it quick. My last thought on that, which is I would say maybe the number one piece of FUD about Bitcoin for 16 years was government's going to ban it. If you were to rank the FUD, and that's clearly not happening, and all the people who said that aren't walking it back. So I watched Preston Pish, that episode that came out today, and he had Perianne Boring on there, and she does a lot of like advocating in DC stuff for Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure she said she knows there's 290 members of Congress that are like on record as pro crypto or pro Bitcoin. I was like, that number is nuts. 200, it's like half. That's like half, more than half. What's my math? That's crazy.
That is wild. Yeah, it's insane. There's a lot going on. It's changing. The Overton window, as they say, is shifting. So we could get to some questions here. We're 42 minutes in. We usually do this for an hour. So if you haven't asked questions now, now is the time, and I'll definitely get to them. We have a few. And of course, the first one is taking us all the way back to Misty here. Why doesn't Misty hold Strike or Strife instead of a bond? It's specifically treasury bonds that don't show up as a concentration within one of these diversified ETF portfolios. So that's a quick answer to that one. I don't know if you guys probably nothing to add to that, I imagine. They should hold Strike or Strife. It would give them a lot better price appreciation and dividends. Anyway, Bobby C, is there enough BTC for it to be used as store of value, medium of exchange, and unit of account globally? This is an interesting question. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
Yep. I kind of answered this in the chat, but I'll give a little bit more fleshed out answer here. First off, there is a limited amount of Bitcoin. However, you can divide it up a lot. Some people try to use that as FUD, like saying, oh, well, that means there's an infinite amount of Bitcoin. Well, not necessarily. But because Bitcoin can be divided down into Satoshis, we have 21 quadrillion Satoshis, and there are not even close to that many people on Earth. So we can still transact using Bitcoin by using Satoshis. There's even a way to make something that's smaller than a Satoshi. It's a millisatoshi. You can do that on the Lightning Network, right? And there will be layers of Bitcoin created in the future where perhaps even more divisibility is possible, right? But the truth is, especially at a top-down level, you don't need to have a certain number of Bitcoin. There could be only one Bitcoin in existence, and even still, you would be able to divide it up in order to use it amongst an entire population of a planet, and Bitcoin University actually has a video talking about this. It's a pretty old one, but long story short, Bitcoin being so divisible, we're able to use it, divide it up, and the amount of value that a single Satoshi will hold. And this is an amazing quote. It won't be true for a really long time, but one Satoshi will have more value than one entire Bitcoin does today. It will take time, but one Satoshi in the far future will have more value than one entire Bitcoin does today. And when that time comes, we will be needing millisatoshis for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's super interesting. I agree basically with everything you said. It's essentially like a difficult thing to unwind your Keynesian thought brain that you've sort of been indoctrinated into, that like the units of currency is what matters. And like you're saying, Gen Z, the purchasing power is what matters. The units of currency just like are sort of a measure, or sort of a fluctuating measure, but the purchasing power is what really matters. Like how much stuff and goods and services can you get with the money? So basically the idea is you don't if the total supply of the currency is fixed, the productivity growth and the inefficiencies that people gain by doing work and getting better at things make prices go down. And so it doesn't actually, the units of currency in the system don't actually have to go up for more and more, for the velocity of money to keep going. You basically just need productivity and efficiency to grow, and prices fall. Therefore, as long as you can subdivide the money enough, then the smaller and smaller units of money become worth more in purchasing power terms. Honestly, I don't know if I did a very good job explaining it, because it's very kind of complicated and hard to make your brain kind of flip the thinking, since we've all grown up in this Keynesian thought world where you have to introduce more units of currency, otherwise there won't be enough.
Right. Yeah. As long as it's divisible, and it's currency in motion that is important. So if a bunch of somebody could hold all 20 million Bitcoin, and then there's 1 million Bitcoin left, and even that would be fine, as long as that 20 million didn't move, right? Which would happen naturally. There'd be people that wouldn't move their Bitcoin, or wouldn't need to move their Bitcoin, and we would just use what is available within the currency market. And as long as it's divisible enough, that's really the only thing that's important in that case. And then, of course, in my opinion, it works better as a unit of account than anything else, because it's the only thing that actually has a fixed supply. It has it's the perfect ruler. You're not measuring with a ruler that's constantly getting bigger and smaller depending on what the Fed decides to do at a whim, or whatever happens in the globe, right? We know the fixed issuance, max supply, these things make it structurally much better for measuring other things against. All right, let's move on here. We got Verhoofden Floofden, 1 million BTC by 2035. That's a 10x in 10 years. What do you guys think about 1 million BTC by in 10 years here?
Definitely possible. I never like predicting the Bitcoin price. I would say probable, but I've been proven wrong so many times on the Bitcoin price. I don't even know. All I know is that the price is going to go up a lot. So, yes, I guess.
John in the chat here says 10x is 10 in 10 years is bearish. Is that right, John?
Yeah. 10x in 10 years. How many X have we done in the last 10 years?
I don't even know.
Yeah, but it gets harder to do an X as
agree.
it gets bigger too.
I know, but still, come on, 10x.
Yeah, come on,
It's like
guys.
in crypto, bro. 10x is nothing.
Get that bearish trash out of here. Come on now. Don't be swearing like that in the chat.
All right. Gabe asked an interesting one here. I've heard you guys talk about eventually you will not be able to purchase BTC with cash. This is something I've talked about a lot. What would the situation look like where you could no longer swap cash for BTC? Does anybody want to take this?
Yeah, not a good situation.
Yeah.
Or, Josh, you wanted to. I don't think you've talked in a while. Go ahead.
I mean, I think theoretically there's always going to be an exchange rate from dollars to Bitcoin, unless there's some kind of crazy hyper inflation event. So I think it'll just look more like no one's willing to exchange Bitcoin for cash unless it's to make a specific transaction. No one's going to want to hold cash as a store of value at some point, but I think there will always be a theoretical exchange rate of dollars to Bitcoin.
My quick comment on this is, if you want to know what that'll look like, see if you can swap your BTC for seashells. You really can't, because that's not really money anymore. It'll be the same situation. I truly do believe that. I can't say how long that'll take, but that will happen. All fiat currencies fail. Just takes a long time.
Yeah, and I would just also, you could look at the Venezuelan currency, you could look at the German currency post World War I. These things hyperinflated where there was, technically there was still an exchange rate, but it was a wheelbarrow full of this paper for a loaf of bread. So yeah, I think that there could be a time where the people have lost faith. That's all that happens, right? These currencies are just belief-based systems, where it's a social contract of exchanging something of value for this currency in hopes that you can trade it later on for something else of value. You're using it as a tool to solve the coincidences of wants that barter has. So if that falls apart, which in my eyes, like I look at the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, I think that it is worthless already. It technically isn't. People are willing to accept it all over the place, but already in my mind, I don't value it. And I look at the Bitcoin in my wallet and I value it. So I think as that shift happens, the only way, if I think Bitcoin's going to replace all currencies, because people will not have faith in fiat currencies, and the payment rails on Bitcoin will work sufficiently enough that people can just transact in that. And then the only way to get more Bitcoin is to exchange value for it. So either sell things or work and be paid directly in Bitcoin. That's what that looks like, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the seashells analogy is good. Like, technically, I could probably find someone who can give me a bunch of seashells for $10. Like, does that mean I should, or anyone will? Probably not, but technically I could find an exchange somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro, if someone's trying to link with you, talking about, hey, y'all, I'll pay you in seashells, bro, you ending up in a basement, dog. Do not go to that meetup.
Yeah. All right. If we want to move on from there, we got this question here, which is a common one. I think it's a pretty easy answer, but how will miners be paid when all the Bitcoin is mined? So that's right now, for those in the chat that don't realize, there's a subsidy with each block, which is 3.125 Bitcoin of newly minted Bitcoin is given to the miner that creates the block. And every roughly 4 years, that's halved, and eventually there will be no subsidy, and the miners will only make profits from the fees. So right now there's the subsidy and the fees. Eventually there will only be fees. And Verhoofdy is wondering, how will miners be paid when all the Bitcoin is mined? It's by fees. And the amount will either be high enough, or the value of that amount will be sufficient enough to make it still economically viable to mine, just as it is today.
And I think at that point in the future, on-chain transactions are going to be like large exchanges of value. Like, you think about like a real estate agent, they're basically just collecting transaction fees on a house. So if you're the miner collecting fees on large transactions like foreign trade and real estate exchange, like, odds are you're probably going to be making a good amount of money by facilitating those transactions.
Also,
Yeah, and
you guys none of us are gonna be alive in 2136, but how valuable do you think that 0.000001 Bitcoin that they're gonna mine is gonna be? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's gonna be, I don't know. In my head, I'm thinking like, sheesh, I don't even want to say a number, but
yeah,
Yeah, that'll be a crazy time. First
Yeah.
off, look, I'm Gen Z, bro. I'm gonna be there. All right, I don't know what y'all talking about. All right, I'm gonna get the best life extending medication. I got Bitcoin, you know what I'm saying? But one thing I'll say about the price, it goes back to that thing I said earlier, where one sat will be worth more than one whole Bitcoin is today. You have to think the entire world's energy is being used to mine Satoshis in the future. You know, by the time we're at 2100, the year 2100, they will be mining Satoshis only, and there'll only be a few thousand Satoshis. That's insane. So those few thousand Satoshis, imagine how good we're going to be at like cultivating energy, utilizing energy, finding stranded energy. We might be taking energy straight from the sun. We might have like a Dyson sphere in the year 2100. You know what I mean? So one Satoshi is going to be worth, again, you know, hundreds of trillions and trillions, quintillions of dollars, you know, because they won't be dollars at that point, you know. And that's ridiculous to think about, but that's just the way it is. Think about the value of 50 Bitcoins back in the year 2008. The value was zero, you know. So how do you go from zero to 100,000? You know, the gap is absolutely massive. It's an infinite gap, really. So the gap between now and 2100, unbelievable.
Look, I just want to share this this tweet here. This really sums it up to me. We just hit block 888,888 just a couple weeks ago or whatever. But you can see here the block reward was actually larger. It's been larger every single time, or sorry, it's been smaller every single time. But the dollar amount every time we hit one of these repeating numbers has been higher, except this blow off top here that we had. And then still it's recovered and gone higher. So even with less Bitcoin, you know, the halvings happening, the purchasing power, the value of that Bitcoin is, the nominal amount of Bitcoin is half, but the purchasing power in dollars is way higher every single time this happens. And this is just going to continue on until that amount of Bitcoin in the block is so little, but the purchasing power is going to continue to go up in dollar terms. That really visually shows it to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you found that. I was just typing into Perplexity trying to find basically like I've like seen something similar. I've probably seen that, and I was trying to find the chart because like, well, first of all, when everybody asks like what's gonna happen in 2140, I'm like, come on, like who knows? But the track is the block subsidy is less in Bitcoin terms than if it's worth more in dollar terms every single time. So if that continues, even though if the transaction fees are tiny in today's, you know, stat to dollar terms, they could easily be enough in 2140. I mean, there's no way to know 125 years from now, but that's the trajectory we're headed on. And historically, you just showed it. So I think that's the best visual that shows like it's headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Final thoughts on this one, guys?
Just the really important thing that I'm going to look for is at what point do the transactions fees outweigh the subsidies for an entire, you know, 4-year cycle. So.
Right. It's happened momentarily, but usually from like spam on the network and stuff like that. Quick one. This one real quick. The tens of thousands of altcoins are value traps and dilute the price rise of Bitcoin.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of think that they might distract some people, but I don't know if they dilute the price rise of Bitcoin. I guess maybe there's some people that still fall for this stuff. Is that what's happening? People
I think
still
the
Yeah,
assumption
I
there
mean,
would have to be that all the money that's in altcoins would go in Bitcoin if altcoins didn't exist. And I don't know if I buy that, right? Because those are people who are shitcoiners who haven't got onto Bitcoin yet. Would they get to Bitcoin faster if shitcoins didn't exist? Maybe, but they're just gambling and buying meme coins. So I don't know if they would necessarily make the leap to hard money if altcoins didn't exist. I don't know.
I don't think it has to be
Everybody
all.
needs a little shitcoin adventure, you know. Like I feel like you need to experience it before you understand Bitcoin. That's just my opinion. I mean, I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I bought I don't even remember, but it was some really scammy coin back in the day in 2017, and I lost like $600. So yeah, everyone has a little shitcoin adventure.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
That's all future Bitcoin. That's all. Those people are all future Bitcoiners, and all that money is future money that will flow into Bitcoin. So it's just sitting there waiting until it makes its way over.
Yeah,
True.
pretty much. Bitcoin dominance is around 65% right now. That means that 35% of the money is not being allocated, at least in the crypto space. And eventually there will be 100% Bitcoin dominance.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's about it for the show. Thanks everyone in the chat. I'm Forrest Hoddle, Bitcoin Not Crypto. We got Gen Z BTC, Dan from Bitcoin Reactions on YouTube, Ralph from Nurse Hodl, Josh from WorkSave Bitcoin, and John from My Favorite Thing About Bitcoin. I will make sure to put all of your guys' links in the chat once the live is done. And we try to do this live stream every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for an hour. We like to answer your guys' questions, go over some of the news events, and so on. So thanks everybody for being here. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, we'll just wrap it up.
Thank you guys so much. We need more talk in the chat. Today was a good day. Everyone was not too shy, so I like that. We need more chat interactions. You guys really help make the show. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Remember, stack sats or die trying.
Die trying.
See you guys.
See ya.